In the end, it's the teenage-style libido and erections that we are all targeting. And honestly, it's all about the DHT to E2 balance. Dialing in crazy erections and great libido, the primal kind, where you're kind of just insatiably ready to go, is always a matter of elevated DHT and estrogen in the sex-friendly zone. And as long as you understand that concept, you can hyper-manipulate any protocol you're on, whether it's Cypionate, which in my opinion and experience is largely trash, or it's Enanthate, which is a little bit better. Obviously Prop, better for sexual function, easier to dial in, faster to dial in, and then definitely Test Cream. Also though, keeping this concept of mind in having high DHT and estrogen range, adding a little bit, like a milligram a day or every other day of exogenous DHT to the scrotum can dial people in as well. Utilizing tools like Proviron, which we're going to get to give you the DHT-like effect, but to control estrogen to some extent, albeit with higher doses of Proviron. Again, we'll explain that. You dial in and you get teenage-style libido and erections. Point is, you can hyper-manipulate any protocol, and I'm going to go through protocols for you, manipulate them so that you're in the sex-friendly zone. And I really want folks to pay attention to this. Being dialed in on TRT where the sex function is great, it's the best thing ever. Let's talk about how to do it. All right, first out the video, look, Cortex Labs, which is my company, is a TRT guidance and sexual dysfunction resolution company. We've been around for almost a decade, and we've got pretty epic products. I just revamped the entire coaching roster. So now I want to quickly show you guys, there is a sexual function protocol blueprint that is a single session consult aimed to restore libido and erections. 30-minute call with me, full protocol generation, tailored online document, targets the restoration of libido and erections. There's a 3-month TRT sexual function restoration intensive. That is the most efficient route to resolve sexual function issues. And then there's the 6-month advanced TRT sexual function restoration. This are for folks with long-standing complex libido and erection issues that needs the time to properly dial in. And then lastly, we just built a PFS recovery program. All the details are down in the description of this video or at livecortex.com. Source list, anything you can think of, including the high-potency DHT stuff, Proviron, test of any ester. You can get that down in the description of this video. And then, of course, we've got Mastering Testosterone Cream and then Mastering Testosterone Cypionate. These are video courses for libido and erection. You get those down below. Now I'm going to give you guys precisely why people have a difficult time dialing in on TRT. I'm just over here trying to give you guys the truth so that you can have a happy time on TRT and have your erections, your libido, and have energy and be awesome. But it's stuff like this that confuses people and sidelines folks, puts everybody on the wrong track. Should we even bother with DHT? Do any of you guys naturally try and improve testosterone or on TRT care about DHT? I have this one bodybuilder friend that not too long ago started injecting testosterone and also conveniently started going bald. I'd assume it was part of testosterone being converted into DHT, given that it's family history with baldness, blah, blah, blah. The Norwood Reaper came knocking at his door. So like any reasonable person, so this is how, like, excuse my French, this is how fucked up people are. I suggested he hops on dutasteride or finasteride. Yeah, smart idea, idiot. And he proceeded to lash out at me. Good move, bodybuilder dude, and saying DHT was so important for 1,000 different things, which it is. To me, DHT just seems like a net negative to health, physical attraction, and graceful aging. Yeah, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, brother. This is actually a great comment that I want to read because no, he doesn't include how DHT is fostering the health of the lining of your blood vessels in your penis to facilitate erections. It's actually the active androgen in the restoration of nitric oxide-induced erections in a castrated rat. You castrate a rat, you give him testosterone, doesn't restore sexual function. You castrate a rat, you give him DHT, restores sexual function. What do you know? Guy goes, yeah, it's also the primary driver of male features. We must not forget that what makes us males, what deepens our voice, what gives us facial hair, what gives us our assertive masculine presence, is in fact dihydrotestosterone. I mean, what of the 3 hormones is it? Testosterone? No, that's mainly anabolic. Estrogen? It couldn't be estrogen. It is DHT. Without it, you're not going to be as manly, I guess. It is responsible for sexual desire and for sensitivity during sex. This is actually true. The nerve endings in the penis rely on DHT for sensation. So if you remove that, the sex just isn't as appealing. It's also what gives you your neural drive. It improves muscle activation and coordination. On top of that, enhances your strength and power output. Also helps regulate where fat is stored. This is true. Reducing abdominal and visceral fat, making you look leaner. Anybody that's been on a DHT derivative or has had high DHT, as long as your calories are right and you're working out, you look leaner. Well, that's via less subcutaneous water under the tissue. Then he goes, this is a cheeky fellow, but yeah, you're right. It's totally useless. Let's just ditch it. Then, of course, this comment, DHT is what makes your dick work. There are a ton of people and stories about post-finasteride syndrome, which is a syndrome where you basically have no erections, no libido, a numbing of sensation and climax because you've blocked DHT with a hair loss drug. Testosterone can convert to DHT or estrogen, and I think I can tell you which one I'd rather have. Yeah. Me too, brother. So, I mean, that's the bottom line. It's stuff like that confuses people into thinking like, man, I don't really need to worry about DHT all that much. Brother, you need to worry about DHT. Believe me. But achieving teenage-style libido and erections on TRT is a matter of getting the DHT estrogen balance in the right place. Let's talk about some protocols on how to adjust hyper-manipulate protocols to get that balance. On Cypionate, I'm just going to go ahead and make this statement. Now, I know there are outliers and there are folks that can dose 120 of Cypionate a week and every other day injections, and the DHT lands at 60 and the E2's at 30, and they've got great sexual function. It just isn't most people. For Cypionate, you really do have to have, okay, again, generally speaking, higher doses in the 170 to 210 milligram a week dose range, because then you're guaranteed to get the DHT. You're guaranteed to get enough DHT for good sexual function then. But estrogen will almost always go too far out of range, which is going to inhibit sexual function. So on Cypionate, you need high doses plus an AI. Okay, you got to figure out how to dial that in. If you can't, you go to other options, which we're going to get to, or high doses of Cypionate plus a DHT derivative, Primo or Masteron. Again, controlling the estrogen while still having high DHT. That is the recipe for teenage-style libido and erections on TRT. On high doses of Cypionate, some folks can get away with just Proviron. These are kind of low-end aromatizers where on no HCG and 200 milligrams a week of Cypionate done daily injections. They've got E2 of like 35. They add a little HCG because you do need that, call it 150 IU a day, and then run 50 to 75 milligrams Proviron a day. You do need higher doses for the estrogen blocking effect, as well as the enhanced DHT effect. And then some folks dial in like that. So the protocol would be like 200 milligrams of Cypionate, you inject every other day intramuscularly with a 5/8" needle in the glute. You're on 50 milligrams Proviron every day, 2 25 milligram Masteron tablets, and you run 150 IU of HCG subcutaneously in the belly fat every day. People dial in on that, right? Again, because the same principle applies. They've got loads of DHT, and estrogen is controlled. In a lot of cases, so the reason I say this with high-dose AI or high-dose DHT derivative or high-dose Proviron works is because for a lot of folks, some folks can get away with lower dosing like 110, 120 or something of Cypionate, and they have enough DHT and sexual functions good because E2 is automatically going to fall in the sex-friendly zone, 20 to 35. But for a lot of folks, going that low in the Cypionate dose just doesn't give them enough DHT. So they end up in a lukewarm place of okay sexual function, but it's not the young man youthful sexual function status at all. In those cases, so you can't dial in AIs, you can't dial in DHT derivatives, you go down to 115 and estrogen's in range, but sexual function is kind of meh. Well, then you've got to focus on prop or cream. Let's talk about cream. On cream, you get the best of both worlds. Again, I'm going to continue to say that testosterone cream is the best testosterone modality, period. Because you can maintain a great degree of anabolism on a relatively moderate dose of cream just because of the surge in testosterone that you're getting every day. It doesn't leave the system as quickly as prop, so you do get more androgen receptor binding where it matters related to anabolism. But it's so DHT heavy that if the dose is right, it controls estrogen for you. All right, let's run through some protocols. So 4 to 5 pumps of the 100 milligram cream applied to the scrotum with 150 IU of HCG daily. Now, usually for folks like that's the best template to start with. You might have to adjust one way or the other, lower the HCG, raise the HCG, change the application sites of the testosterone cream. And I'm going to get to that right now. Because sometimes on that, you could have muted libido, but E2 is like down there, like 20 or so, 25. But you've got muted libido because DHT is a little too high for the E2. I've seen this before. So what balances those cases out, because listen, if the DHT is entirely too high and it's just sort of overpowering the estradiol, you'll still have good erections, nocturnals, erections for sex, but the libido is gonna suffer usually. And that's because E2 is being muted just a little too much. The balance isn't right. In that case, switch to 2 pumps on the forearm, 3 on the scrotum. Then you get a little more aromatization. You get a better balance. You're still getting the DHT because you got 3 whole pumps on the scrotum. And then people dial in that way. Or, as in my case, because I was getting some pretty significant diffuse hair thinning on just 5 pumps, 100 milligrams on the scrotum every day. Like, it was noticeable. My hair is now back. Like, it's getting strong again. But I just switched to 3 pumps on the forearm / bicep. I kind of just rub it all around this area right here. And then 2 pumps on the scrotum. I'm fucking dialed in as hell, dude, without any diffuse hair thinning. So what is that? What is that? It's hyper-manipulating a TRT protocol to achieve teenage-style libido and erections without side effects. I've got nocturnals every night. You know, you don't have to have them every night, but every night of the week, at least once throughout the night, I've got an automatic erection. I wake up horny as hell. Why? Well, estrogen's lower. I'm troughing, but I still have a lot of DHT. And then remarkably, when I apply the test cream, I'm even more horny. And then I'm just horny throughout the like all day, pretty much every day. That's how I feel. But in doing that, like for me, in changing the sites of the application of cream to 3 on the forearm and 2 on the scrotum, I had previously been dosing, 5 on the scrotum with 330 IU HCG a day. That landed me in a great place. But now putting 3 on the forearm, it's a little more aromatization. So I reduced the HCG dose to 166, basically half IU per day. And everything's fucking great. Hyper-manipulating a TRT protocol to dial in libido and erections. Test Enanthate. Test Enanthate. Like people talk a lot of trash on the long esters, and it's for good reason. They usually don't convert enough to DHT unless you're doing higher doses plus something to control estrogen. But this is the same thing. You want to run 170 to 200 on that stuff in most cases. Again, this is not blanket statements. This is generally speaking. Some folks will do fine at 120 in estrogens and range and they have enough DHT. But if it doesn't work like that, you got to run 200 of Enanthate. And then, 6.25, 12.5 milligrams Aromasin once every 6 days, every 7 days, so that estrogen lands at 30, but you still have enough DHT. Do you guys know, like, some of the people that are the most dialed in on TRT, you see them in the forums, and I see them in coaching work because I've gotten them to that point. Or it's people that have been at that point of dialed in on the long ester but just want to try cream. Yeah, they're dosing 200 milligrams a week, and they're fucking taking 0.25 or 0.5 of Arimidex day after injection, and they're great. E2's at 27. Their DHT is sky high. They feel fucking awesome, and they're anabolic as shit. And they got ragers. The libido is high. Sensation and climax are intact and functioning well. This is where people do well on the longer esters. So yeah, I know that AIs are hard to dial in because they unevenly distribute estrogen at the tissues, and sometimes it's impossible to dial them in. Your body's just not going to respond to AIs. Not everybody's is. But if you're running the longer esters, boys, Cypionate, Enanthate, this is usually where you have to be. Now, let's talk about testosterone propionate. With Prop is pretty DHT heavy, but not as like favorable for the DHT estrogen ratio as testosterone cream, so you have to manipulate it a little bit. But since it's DHT heavy, you can operate at E2 friendly doses, which for test Prop is 15 to 25 milligrams a day. And usually you'll have enough DHT in that case to have great sexual function. But if you don't, because that happens too, then you just got to go higher, 30, 35, 40 milligrams a day. And then you've got to use Aromasin, or you've got to use Primo or Masteron to control the estrogen. Again, hyper-manipulating a protocol so that you have the teenage-style libido and erections. With Prop, if you're not able to achieve it on the lower-end doses that are E2-friendly doses, sex-friendly doses regarding estrogen, you got to go up. You got to go to 30. You got to go to 35. Try 40. Run that. But you're going to have to find the right dose of Aromasin. Usually it's lower doses in those cases, 6.25 every 6 days or so, 6.25 once a week. Same thing with Primo and Masteron. I mean, Primo adds anabolism, to the mix, so you look better. It's a DHT derivative, so you look leaner. You're instantly stronger. Primo tends to not have any side effects whatsoever. but it controls estrogen. I mean, it's literally going to lower the serum estradiol on your blood. Masteron doesn't quite do that, does block the receptors, creates an estrogen blocking like effect. You find the right fucking dose, rockin' libido, crazy erections, and you still enjoy your higher dose, in this case of prop, manipulating the protocol for teenage style libido and erections. Keeping in mind the golden rule, high DHT, estrogen in the sex specific zone of 20 to 35 picograms per milliliter. This is not difficult. Lastly, I'll say this. On any protocol where you're able to get E2 in the sex-friendly zone, again, 20 to 35, usually requires low doses. If you get the 20% DHT gel that's on source list and you reconstitute it with you got to ask chat this. It's like, I forget what I reconstitute, like 8 milliliters of MCT oil. You'll have to check the math on your specific concentration, but you get it down to 1 milligram per drop. You know, it's a oil, right? It's a transdermal gel, but it's really more like an oil base. On any dose of testosterone that gets E2 in the friendly zone, let's call it 27, you're sitting at 27, but sex function isn't great because you don't have enough DHT. Just a milligram or 1 drop of DHT on the scrotum every day or every other day usually solves that problem. That's not even hyper-manipulating. That's just a small added layer. And by the way, when you get the 20% DHT stuff and you reconstitute it, it lasts for fucking ever. I have so much DHT, it's unreal. What's the moral of the story for all of these protocols regarding getting sex function in the teenage youthful style range? The moral of the story is every time, in every one of the examples that I just gave, you've got high enough DHT, I think 75 to 90. Now, some folks get away with 60, but you want to push the high end or slightly super physiologic range, and estrogen between 20 and 35. You can't just expect to go on a cookie cutter thing. Everyone's so against that. Oh, cookie cutter, 200 milligram a week Cypionate with 0.5 Arimidex, not good from the clinics. Well, then why go on cream on the cookie cutter suggestions of 200 milligram cream, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening? Right? You're going to have to manipulate the protocol in fucking 85% of those cases. Rarely do people go on that, 2 pumps in the morning, 2 pumps in the evening of 200 milligram cream and dial in perfectly. They're usually over aromatizing. Their test is sitting at fucking 1700 and the E2's at 70 and they have ED and libido problems. You have to apply the golden rule of high DHT and estrogen in range on any TRT protocol to get the sex function dialed in to youthful states. But look, I mean, the bottom line is some people do not want to go at this alone because it can be painstaking. Those short strokes and dialing in, certain doses aren't going to work for everybody. You've got to know how to adjust finely to get the sex function firing on all cylinders. This is what I have made a career doing as a coach. You can hire me at underaminutelifecortex.com. There are new packages, okay? There's a TRT sexual function protocol blueprint. It's a single session consult. Deep dive fact finding, protocol generation for you to just move on. It's for folks that want targeted advice and a protocol generated for them, but don't want coaching. Book it under a minute, livecortex.com. The 3-month TRT sexual function restoration intensive. Now, this is working directly with me. Ongoing weekly async communication, full deep dive, multiple protocol adjustments, resolution of erection issues, resolution of libido issues. Go book it. livecortex.com. The 6 months advanced TRT sexual function restoration. Listen, some stuff takes time and you're doing more harm than good going for a 3-month. If you have long-standing, very long-standing, complex sexual function where you're sensitive to changes in estradiol and you're sensitive to every hormone and you've tried everything for a while, that's for folks that want to dial in and do it the right way. We've also got a PFS recovery program. You can book all these in under a minute at livecortex.com. There is an FAQ at the bottom of the coaching page, which explains how they all work. Source list, again, anything you can think of anabolic-wise, test of any ester. Look, you might want to try test prop. You can get it on source list. Proviron, DHT itself. It's so powerful for people's protocols. It's not even funny. It's silly, actually. Source list is down below. You can get it at livecortex.com, instant download. If you need to dial in on test cream, I created the official rule book for dialing in libido and erections on testosterone cream. You can get that down below, and same thing with testosterone Cypionate. Go get these courses, livecortex.com. All right, we've reached the end of the video now. Please like the video, boys. The algorithm, God, I can't even think. Right, let me just sub to the channel because now we're really, really growing and we'll hit 40,000. God, hold on. My brain is not working. Let me just rework that. wrong with this chair? God. Damn it. There's nothing down there. It's just a phantom stuckness every day. Anyway, boys, let me just, sub to the channel and like the video. Just, let me get the mic so you can hear me. Give me this thing! God. The video's over. Thanks for being with me, boys. Please like the video. Seriously, just hit the like button. It's free to do, costs you nothing, and it really helps the channel get out there to people who actually need to be hearing what I'm saying over here. Sub to the channel. Again, we'll hit 40K very soon with your help. Let's get it done. I'd love to have you on board. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Please go check out the new coaching options. They are priced lower and they are effing awesome. Otherwise, may not do content before Christmas. We'll see. Otherwise, after Christmas into the new year, we're hitting the ground running. See you then. Peace. See ya.